What is up, guys? Welcome back to Overspray. Now, as you guys know, in a recent video of mine, I did a spray gun shootout with both of these spray guns, the Satas 5000 BRP and the Harbor Freight Black Widow. Now, as you guys know, I did claim that that spray gun shootout was a draw, just because I was able to get just as good of a finish with the Harbor Freight than I could with the Satas. But of course, in terms of speed, the Satas just absolutely decimates the Harbor Freight in that aspect. But I did get a comment on that video stating that it is known that nozzle tips from Satas are actually larger than other guns out there on the market. Now, I was trying to do some research and trying to see if, I could find some proof on those claims to at least support those claims, but I couldn't really find anything in concrete with pictures or measurements or anything like that that really supported those claims. So I figured I'd do a video with these two spray guns torn apart and really see if Satas does indeed use larger tips than the rest of the guns out there on the market. Alrighty, guys, so I was able to get these guns torn apart. Now let's go ahead and start to look at the details. Now I am going to be using a digital micrometer to start measuring some of these parts to try to get the best idea possible to see what the differences are. So we're going to basically start with the air caps. Now, as you guys can see, that both of these air caps look similar, of course, because obviously one is kind of a copycat of the other. But if you guys notice on the Harbor Freight air cap, the air jets are just much smaller than in comparison to the Satas. So, of course, the one on the left is the Satas 5000. As you guys can see there, I'm pretty sure you guys can pick that up. The air holes are just ginormous in comparison to the Harbor Freights. Now, of course, with the air horns as well, you got a little bit of a design difference there, but really that's not what we're here to focus on. But yeah, there are some differences as far as air cap design on the Satas in comparison to the Harbor Freight. The Harbor Freight kind of has these straight cuts, and the Satas actually has like kind of like these two 45-degree cuts on their air horns. But nevertheless, you can see that there is a major difference as far as the air jets go on those caps. Now we're going to go ahead and look at the tips. And I don't know if you guys can tell visually, but just by looking at them, you can actually see that there is quite a difference here on the Satas. Just visually looking at it, I could already tell that there is a difference. Now, just for proof, as you guys can see right there on that cap, a 1.3 for the Harbor Freight, and the Satas also claims it's a 1.3 tip as well. So just in comparison, so we're comparing apples to apples here. Of course, on the needle also claims it's a 1.3 and a 1.4 on the Harbor Freight, which means the needle is good for both those sizes. And the Satas jet does say a 1.3 on the needle. So just to get any malinterpretations or anything like that. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and set up the micrometer in millimeters, and we're going to start off with the Satas and go ahead and try to get a general measurement here. And as you guys can see, that is quite larger than a 1.3, isn't it? Yeah, just let me try to get as many measurements as possible to try to get the biggest. All right, and we just got a measurement of about 1.41, it looks like. Yeah, that is going to prove that the tips on these Satas are much larger than what they claim they are. I would say with better measuring tools, you're probably looking at about 1.44, maybe a 1.45, it's somewhere in that range. But that kind of proves that Satas does use larger tips than than what they say they are. Now I went ahead and tried to measure as accurately as possible and try to see what was the largest size. And the largest size I was able to get was a 1.43. Now I did set the micrometer to 0 just to verify that it was measuring correctly. But that is sure proof that SATA does use much larger tips than what they claim. Now they do claim that their spray guns spray better than everyone else on the market, right? So we're gonna go ahead and grab the Harbor Freight tip, and as you guys can see, I wasn't quite able to get a 1.3 out of it. The closest I could get is 1.23, but given that I don't have the appropriate measuring tools for this, these are just rough estimates. So I would say that the Harbor Freight tip is probably closer to like a 1.25 or a 1.28, somewhere around there, but much, much closer than a 1.3 in comparison to the SATA, which is like a 1.4 and change, right? So much larger tip sizes from the SATA. Now, another quick thing that I did want to see, I also wanted to measure the air jet in the center. Now, of course, this hole here in the center of the air cap actually helps to get some of the paint out of that nozzle, just right here on the center. Now, just for shits and giggles, I wanted to see how big in comparison to the Harbor Freight, comparing the Satas to the Harbor Freight, and they pretty much measured out the same, about the 3.56, 3.58, somewhere around that area. But so really the only big difference that we're having is obviously different tip sizes, but also the holes on the air cap are much larger than at least in comparison to the Harbor Freight. But as you guys can see, the nozzle, it does say it's a 1.3, but then again the center hole measures 1.4 and change. The largest I could get it was obviously 1.43. So is this why SATA can claim that they get faster coverage, that that they're overall superior than other spray guns? I guess they're not really lying per se. They are getting more coverage and stuff like that, but at the same time they are lying in the sense that they're saying it's a 1.3, but when in reality it's a 1.4 and change, a 1.45 or 1.44. Given that if I had better measuring tools, we would be able to prove that. But nevertheless, I think this is going to be enough proof to really say that it is a fact that SATA does use larger tips than what they claim they are. Now, like I said, I mean, what would be the difference between me putting a 1.4 or a 1.5 on my Harbor Freight and the SATA having its whatever it is, 1.43 or whatever it is. In comparison to that, maybe I could get the spray gun to spray just as much with the Harbor Freight, or just as good, I should say, than I can with the SATA. Now, I did do a little small comparison with the needles. As you guys can see, got a little bit of an indent there, whereas the Black Widows was cut straight. The SATA's just seems to have some sort of chamfer on the end of the needle. Now, I wasn't sure if this was just wear and tear or normal wear of the spray gun, or if it was specifically designed to specifically set into the needle and nozzle combination, so as for better sealing. So I wasn't too sure on that one. I'm not sure if that was just wear and tear. Of course, this is a used gun to me, but nevertheless, I'm getting ahead of myself. But nevertheless, SATA does use larger tip sizes than what they claim they are. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, guys. As always, stay spraying. Let me know in the comments section, what do you guys think?